Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Dr. Weni and I'm a researcher at INIEF, Institute of Islamic Economic and Finance. INIEF is the autonomous institution established on November 2018 in North Sumatra, Indonesia. Our main activities are to undertake research and studies on Islamic economy and finance in order to build up literacy and public awareness and assisting Islamic finance players enhancing their business development. And our vision actually to provide Islamic economics and finance consultation in supporting Indonesia and global economic development. And our mission is to upholding professionalism and promoting Islamic economics and finance and accomplishing the vision. Today we are presenting Islamic economy and finance discussion series that will be presented by our three presenters. The first presenter is Professor Dr. Ugi Suharto. He is now currently lecturer in University of Buraimi, Sultanate of Oman. The second presenter will be presented by Dr. Hafas Furqani, lecturer in Islamic State University, Ar-Raniny in Banda, Aceh, Indonesia. And the last one is Mr. Nurizal Ismail, the lecturer in Institute Islamic in Tazkia, Bogor, Indonesia. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question into the chat box. I will bring them up during the presentation and also have time for question at the end. Now, without further ado, we'll turn the time over to Professor Dr. Ugi Suharto. Let me introduce him first before we start our webinar. Yeah? Professor Dr. Ugi Suharto. Let me share his profile. Professor Dr. Ugi Suharto currently is lecturer in University of Buraimi, Sultanate of Oman. He is born in 1966 in Jakarta and obtained his Ph.D. holder in 2000 from the International Institute of Islamic Thoughts and Civilization (ISTEC) at International Islamic University, Malaysia, majoring in Islamic economics. Both of his Bachelor of Economics in 1990 and Master of Economics in 1993 are from the Faculty of Economics, International Islamic University, Malaysia, IIUM. Dr. Suharto, until now, has more than 2 decades experience in the academic field. Dr. Suharto already spent 7 years as a research fellow at the International Institute of Islamic Thoughts and Civilization (ISTEC), during the time the institute led by its founder director, Professor Dr. Said Muhammad Nakib Alatas, and 5 years as an assistant professor in the Kuliah of Economics and Management Sciences in International Islamic University Malaysia IUM, and 2 years as an associate professor in the University College of Bahrain UCB, and serving as the director of the Islamic Finance Program, 1 year lecturing and managing in the postgraduate Markfield Institute of Higher Education in United Kingdom, and additional 3.5 years as an associate professor in Ahliya University in Bahrain, and 2 years with Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance in the Academic and Executive Center. Dr. Suharto research interests also including Islamic economy and finance, Fiqh al-Muamalat, Islamic thoughts and civilization, and the Hadith studies. He already published more than 30 articles on Islamic studies and Islamic economics in various publications and academic journals in Indonesia, Malaysia, Bahrain, United Kingdom, and Turkey. He's also the author of 2 books. Yeah? Author of 2 books that we call Kitab al-Amwal, Abu Ubaid's Concept of Public Finance, published by ISTEC in 2005. And isu-isu sentral dalam pemikiran Islam liberal, or central issues in Islamic liberal thought, published in Kuala Lumpur 2007. Professor Dr. Ugi, among his academic journal articles already published by the International Journal of Economics, Management and Accounting, International Islamic University Malaysia in 2014, and the Journal of Islamic Monetary Economics and Finance in 2017 of the Central Bank of Indonesia, the International Journal of Islamic and Middle Eastern Finance 2018, and also he already contributed a chapter in textbook on Islamic economics published by the International Sharia Research Academy, or ISRA, in 2018. Please welcome for Professor Dr. Ugi Suharto to deliver his topic. So without further ado, can we start now, Professor Dr. Ugi?
Yes, please. Yeah. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Dr. Weni. Yeah. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa mursalin. Sayyidina wa habibina wa syafi'in Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer, Dr. Weni and his staff for organizing this webinar in the morning in Indonesia, of course, and still early morning in Oman. My position is now in Oman. It is still 6 o'clock, and the sun still not rise yet. All right. My topic would be Islamic worldview, or the worldview of Islam and Islamic economics. I hope I'll be able to share this slide. Basically, I have only 10 slides. I hope everybody will bear with me to go into this 10 slide. I don't know whether you can see or not this slide. Let's see. Okay, can you see it?
Not yet, Prof.
All right. It's still in the process.
Yeah.
So is it okay now?
You can see now, Prof. You can
start. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. So so this is actually the title of my topic. Yeah. Let me what call it? Okay. So the title of my topic is the worldview of Islam and Islamic economics. Yeah. So first, let me describe Islamic economics. So in my writing, I always describe Islamic economics as economics which is in line with the worldview of Islam. So this is actually my descriptions. It is not really a definition in the sense of definitive definitions, because you know in logic we have two types of definitions. One is called ta'rif bil haddi, definitive definitions, which should be mani and jami', or jami' or mani, and another one is definition by definitions, or ta'rif bil rasmi. Now when I'm describing Islamic economics as economics which is in line with the worldview of Islam, I'm giving descriptive definitions. So this is actually my definitions about Islamic economics. Islamic economics is basically economics which is in line with the worldview of Islam. And we know in economics there are two types of economics. One is called the positive economics, and another one is called the normative economics. Now, what is the positive economics? Positive economics is basically the economics which talk about the fact. All right, talk about what is happening in economics. So this is a description of the facts, of what, So this is what is called positive economics. Now, of course, if you want to study positive economics, then we have to connect with our philosophy of science. Now, since I'm acting economics with the worldview of Islam, and one of the one of the most important sources who always describe Islamic worldview is Professor Said Muhammad Naqib Al-Attas. and he has a monograph in his book, The Prolegomena to Metaphysics of Islam, on the Islamic philosophy of science, or Islam and the philosophy of science. So when we talk about the positive aspect of economics, we should relate this conception of positivism or positivity to the philosophy of science. It's basically exactly in chapter 3 of the Prolegomena. So so we have to connect this. All right. Now the second part of economic is what we call normative aspect. And the normative aspect is basically related to the norm, to the value. All right, to what should be worked out to. This is basically related to the policy of the government. So the positive aspect is basically the scientific aspect of economics, and the normative aspect is basically the system, and what we call it the policy aspect of the economy. With regard to the normative aspect, probably we have a wide distinction, a wide differentiation, between Islamic economics and conventional economics. While maintaining probably very close proximity in the positive aspect. All right. In the normative aspect, of course, the economics as well as Islamic economics would deal with the system of production, consumption, distribution, and exchange. So this is basically the scope of what we call economics and also Islamic economics. Now, if you look at the positive aspect of economics and normative economics, we should relate to a little bit of history. We agree that Adam Smith, who died in 1790, was considered as father of economics, because starting from him, the discipline of economics was established. Unfortunately, throughout the history, the thought of Adam Smith on economics is constituting only one aspect of the economics. Finally, the economic thinking of Adam Smith became what we call the classical school. The classical school. Why it is called the classical school? Because in 1930s, the economies of the world was experiencing what we call the Great Depressions. So it seems that the thought of Adam Smith was not able to solve the problem, to the extent that there is another scholar who would complement the thought of Adam Smith. He is John Maynard Keynes. Now John Maynard Keynes proposed the involvement of the government to solve the depressions. So after him, we have another school of economics. We call it the Keynesian school. So basically, the Keynesian school is the school which gives emphasis on the role of government, in managing the economics. While the classical schools, they don't give great emphasis on the government to deal with the economic problem. To them, market would be able to solve its own problem. Now, this is actually the difference between the classical school and Keynesian school. Now, of course, when we study economics, we combine these two schools. In microeconomics, we are using the classical school, or rather neoclassical, because this neoclassical is the classical school which try to incorporate the Keynesian school. In macroeconomics, we are using the Keynesian school. But this is actually what we learn in economics, right? Of course, besides this mainstream economics, under the neoclassical and Keynesian, we have other schools of economics. We have Austrian economics, we have Marxist economics, and we have, of course, Islamic economics. In fact, my intention is that Islamic economics is basically a school of economics. And to me, Islamic economics is a school of economics. So we can discuss, of course, this issue. Now, As we said earlier, the positive economic is more on the analytical, the normal economic is more on the political. So when we say analytical, we are analyzing economic phenomena. When we say political, actually the government is prescribing, the policy, how to deal with economic problem, for example, how to deal with inflation, how to deal with recession, like we are experiencing nowadays. Now we agree that most of the school basically agree on the fundamental aspect of positive economics, whether it is classical school or neoclassical school, Keynesian, Austrian, Islamic economics. We agree on certain aspect of the economics. For example, we agree on law of demand, law of supply, law of diminishing marginal utility, law of diminishing marginal return, and so on and so forth. We mostly agree on this aspect, but the disagreement probably later on the normative aspect. All right. Now, since I define Islamic economics as economics which is in line with Islamic worldview, then we have to touch a little bit on the worldview and the worldview of Islam. Now, on the worldview aspect, we should pay attention more to Professor Hafas. Why? Because of his role in liberating the notion of the worldview of Islam. So, contemporary scholars who is focusing and deliberating in detail the meaning of the worldview of Islam is Professor Manaqib Al-Atas. In his main books, in his book Prologue to the Metaphysics of Islam. Now, Professor Manaqib Al-Atas, he described or defined the Islamic worldview as Islamic vision of existence, reality, and truth. And of course, it will be very long in order to discuss, this brief, what we call it, expression, Islamic vision of the existence, reality, and truth. Now, the implication of this definition is that, when we observe the economic phenomena like inflation, recession, business cycle, and so on and so forth, we should relate, to this vision. It means that it should be subject, to the Islamic vision of existence, reality, and truth. When we see market, for example, our perception must be based on Islamic worldview. So whatever economic phenomena happen, we should interpret and we should use Islamic worldview as a Muslim, of course. Now, in another expression about Islamic worldview, Professor also says that Islamic worldview encompasses both this world and the hereafter, in which the worldly aspect must be related in a profound and inseparable way to life in the hereafter. So, under Islamic worldview, there is no separations between the worldly life and the life in the hereafter. It is integrated. In fact, he said the dunya aspect is seen as a preparation for the akhirah aspect, and hence the akhirah aspect is ultimate and final significance, without implying any attitude of neglect, of being unmindful of the dunya aspect. So there is a connection between the dunya and the akhirah. In fact, the akhirah is the ultimate and final significance. That's why we say a dunya mazra'atul akhirah. So the dunya is basically the capital to reach the akhirah. And then in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَلِّ فِيمَا أَتَاكَ اللَّهُ دَارَ الْآخِرَةِ. Take from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you at dar al-akhirah. And it is the akhirah. So the dunya, we use economics, we use economy in order to get happiness, in the hereafter. So that's the position of our worldview on economic activities. Now, under this worldview, there are fundamental elements. Basically, there are about 9 fundamental elements, which is projecting, the Islamic worldview. The first one is the nature of God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then the nature of revelation, al-wahi, and the nature of religion, ad-din, the nature of man and human soul, al-insan, the nature of creation, al-alam, the nature of knowledge, al-ilmu, the nature of freedom, al-ikhtiyar, the nature of values, al-akhlaq, and the nature of happiness. Okay, the what I call it, as-sa'adah. Yeah. Now, of course, this worldview would be reflected, of course, in Islamic economics. Now, since our time is very limited, yeah, actually we can always relate all these 9 aspects or 9 fundamental elements to the economic itself. But since our time is limited, I just want to relate one aspect. There is man. You see, man and human soul is one of the fundamental aspects of the Islamic worldview. Now, I want to relate our worldview on man and economics. Yeah, so because of the limitations. All right. Now, in economics, we know that man has been defined as Homo economicus, or economic man. All right. And economic man has its own thinking, has its own rationality. Now let's discuss and compare the conception of man in economics and the concept of man, okay, in Islamic worldview, yeah, which will make up what we call Islamic economics. So we know that Homo economicus is a model of human being in his economic thinking and activities. Yeah. Now, in another discipline, yeah, in the discipline of biology, for example, yeah, especially in Darwinian biology, they have their own definition of man. You see, every what we call it, every discipline would have a perspective on human being. Economic has its own perspective on human being. Anthropology has its own perspective on human being. Biology has its own perspective of human being also. Now, in biology, which is probably deeper than economics, in terms of the scientific aspect, yeah, they define human being as Homo sapiens. You see, in fact, probably economic is just imitating, okay, the concept in biology by using the word Homo here. Of course, Homo means human. Yeah, but in biology, they say that we are Homo sapiens. Yeah, we are Homo sapiens. And in economics, we are Homo economicus. So they are using, okay, the same terminology, Homo. Yeah. Unfortunately, if we make a comparison between the concept of Homo sapiens in Darwinian biology and Homo economicus, okay, in economics, we see that the concept of Homo economicus is much lesser behavioral characteristic, yeah, compared to Homo sapiens. Why? Because in Homo economicus, man has been reduced to mere consumer and producer. So we are nothing but consumer and producer. So economicus, Homo economicus, or economic man is nothing but consumer or producer. Either you are producer or you are consumer. Khalas. That is basically a human being according to economics. While in Homo sapiens, they assume that human being as a thinker, now with wider cognitive behavior. So in this case, Homo sapiens is more in terms of the behavior. It is closer, okay, to the real human being. Yeah, it is closer to the real human being. And Homo economicus is rather what we call it reductionist approach, okay, to human being. Now, although Homo sapiens is closer to the real human being, we don't agree either with the definition of human being as Homo sapiens. We in what's under the Islamic worldview, we have our own conception of human being. So you can see now, under Islamic worldview, we have our own conception of human being in what we call it in biology, we have Homo sapiens, and in economics, even we reduce again into a particular model. So Homo economicus has its own cognitive and rational faculties, yes, but his rationality is confined only to the maximization of utility and profitability. So if you are consumer, you are rational when you are maximizing your utility. If you are producer, you are rational if you are maximizing the profitability. These are the rationality concept of Homo economicus. Now again, the worldview of Homo economicus is very confined and very limited to the market. So the worldview of Homo economicus is just market. Okay, his activity is just in the market. Either you buy or you sell. Khalas. Yeah, only buying and selling. These are the main activities of Homo economicus. They are not thinking. Even their thinking is just to maximize utility or just to maximize profitability. So this is actually the model. All right. Now, under this Homo economicus, there is one central point of human being, which we call the self-interest. Now let's touch a little bit, okay, the concept of the self-interest of this Homo economicus. Why? Because whether you are consumer or you are producer, you are motivated, okay, by the self-interest, right? You are motivated by the self-interest. So the whole economic activities of Homo economicus are basically driven, okay, by the so-called self-interest. Now, of course, the one who is emphasizing the role of the centrist is none other than Adam Smith himself in his book, The Wealth of Nations. So I quote here, okay, the statement of Adam Smith, yeah, in his book, and this is basically the very popular quotation of Adam Smith. Yeah, he says that it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interests. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self-love, and never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantage. So this is basically Adam Smith is giving an explanation that, yeah, all our economic activities, our consumption, yeah, is basically not because we are serving others. No, we are serving ourselves. So when we buy, actually we are serving for ourselves and also serving the interest of the producer. Yeah, so it is not from the benevolence, it is not from ihsan, yeah, of the butcher and the brewer and the baker. So when we dine, when we have a breakfast, for example, when we have lunch, yeah, so they are giving us this meal not because from their benevolence, but because they are on self-interest, because they want to get profit. Yeah. So we also, according to Adam Smith, we should not talk about, yeah, our necessities. Yeah. We should not talk about, yeah, our advantage, but we should talk about their necessity, their advantage, in order to serve our self-interest. So this is basically what we call the self-interest. So if we want to conclude, yeah, who is Homo economicus? Yeah, who is economic man? So Homo economicus is basically Homo sapiens, who are the food come profit seeker for his own self-interest. This is basically Homo economicus. All right. It is a kind of oversimplification of the model of human being. Right. Now, of course, later on, Adam Smith talked about the invisible hand, which will connect, okay, the macro and the macro. So according to him, if we serve our own self-interest, it is automatically translated into serving the public interest. Yeah, so this is basically the thought of the classical school. But unfortunately, okay, this thinking was not right. Why? Because we had these Great Depressions in which there is a disconnection, okay, between the micro and the macro, yeah, economics. Yeah. All right. Now let's look at the I have probably three more slides. Now let's look into what we call Islamic perspective, okay, on the self-interest. Yeah, you see, if we read Adam Smith carefully, yeah, especially his book, the economic of Adam Smith is basically a trading market economics, in which the self-interest is needed for a trade. Of course, for a trade, for doing buying and selling, we need self-interest. Yeah, we need self-interest. Yeah, in fact, yeah, when the seller, okay, in fact the seller is serving his self-interest, and the buyer also serving his self-interest. We, for example, as a buyer, of course, we want the price to be lower, right? Why we want the price to be lower as a buyer? Because the lower price is better for our self-interest. Yeah, so we prefer to have a lower price from the buyer point of view. And however, from the point of view, they prefer higher price. Why? Because higher price would serve their interest. So everybody is basically in the market when we do trading, we are serving our own interests. And finally, we agree, okay, about the market price, yeah, in which everybody's self-interest has been attained or has been served. So this is actually what is happening in the market. Yeah. So self-interest is okay. Yeah. So even from Islamic point of view, the self-interest is fine. Why? Because without self-interest, there won't be any trading. There won't be any exchange. There will be any market. Yeah. So self-interest, yeah, in the above case, yeah, in the case of trading is fine. It is not fine when the self-interest turn into selfishness. Now, this is something else. So we distinguish between self-interest and selfishness. Yeah. So the two, unfortunately, are mixed in economics. All right. When we study economics, the self-interest and selfishness are mixed together. Yeah. When we talk about self-interest, we are referring to selfishness, and we talk about selfishness, we are talking about self-interest. This is basically the problem. All right. So in economics, the self-interest and the selfishness have been postulated as the foundation, yeah, of its very discipline. In fact, the selfishness and self-interest is the foundation of the economic itself. All right. Now, in our Islamic economics, yeah, which is governed by Islamic worldview, we distinguish between the self-interest and the selfishness. Self-interest is okay, and selfishness is not okay. Self-interest is permissible, selfishness is not permissible. Now, how do you differentiate between this self-interest and selfishness? Islamic worldview. So only with the Islamic worldview we are able, okay, to see this is self-interest and this is selfishness. We are able, okay, to distinguish, okay, between the two. So we can use self-interest in analyzing Islamic economics, but of course we should not use selfishness. Yeah, while in conventional they mix up. Now let me give an example, okay, between the self-interest and selfishness. In the Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says, "Ahallallahu al-bay' wa harrama riba." Okay, Allah permitted a trade or sale, and Allah prohibited riba. Now, if we serve our self-interest, we are allowed, okay, to do trade. This is al-bay'. But when we go to riba, this is not, yeah, self-interest anymore. This is already selfishness. All right. Why? Because riba is what? Riba is basically giving loan and then you are charging, okay, the borrower. Now, in Islamic worldview, yeah, Islamic Sharia, when you give loan, you are not allowed to charge. You must give your benevolence. So you must not serve, okay, your selfishness. When you charge, then it is not charity anymore. Okay, the contract of loan must be a contract of charity, must be a contract of sadaqah. All right. So when you are charging interest, you are serving your selfishness. You are not serving your self-interest anymore. Now, in economics, now we mix up between sale and riba. Yeah, especially in debt commercialization. So riba is basically, yeah, an example, yeah, of mixing between the self-interest and the selfishness. Now, in this case, the Islamic worldview would play its role as a moral compass and policy to prevent, okay, self-interest develop, yeah, into selfishness. All right. Okay. Now, what about man in Islamic worldview? Okay, man Islamic worldview, human being Islamic worldview. So we say that man is not Homo sapiens, let alone Homo economicus. We don't agree. Yeah, Islamic economics do not agree with the concept of man, yeah, of Homo economicus, or the concept of man as Homo sapiens. We don't agree. Now, some of the economics try to imitate. Yeah, some of the Muslim economics try to imitate. Then we say we have what we call it Islamic man. Yeah. Instead of using economic man, we say Islamic man, yeah, or whatever. Yeah. So actually, we should not imitate, okay, like that. We have our own conception. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Now, from our worldview, yeah, from our Islamic worldview, man is the seeker of truth. Yeah. Man is not only the seeker of food. Yeah, man is not only the consumer. All right. So this is our conception. Man is the seeker of truth. we are looking for truth in our life, not only looking for food, not only looking for profit, but ultimately we should look for the truth, for the haq. So this is human being, yeah. And we know that, yeah, the soul of human being is from the spirit of God, yeah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam and then blow, okay, his spirit into Adam, into Prophet Adam alaihi salam. All right, so this is actually, yeah, a man. So man is, yeah, body and spirit. Now it seems that economic is only serving the body. Yeah, they forgot about the spirit of human being. Now Islamic economics is integrating economic, okay, with the spirit, okay, with the what we call it, with the hereafter. So we should treat also the spirit of human being. Now, in order to do this, again, we have to read the chapter 4 of the Prolegomena, yeah, of the metaphysics of Islam, yeah, which is talking about the human being, the human soul. So man should return his status, yeah, to become what we call al-insan kamil, al-insan al-kamil. Now, who is insan kamil? Insan kamil, who is the person or the man who returned to God, because we belong to God. Okay, we belong to God. Yeah, we come from God, and we have to return to God. Now, remember, we have this this body. We gave covenant to God. Yeah, in the alam roh, alastu bi rabbikum, God asked us, am I not your Lord? And we say, bala syahidna, yes. Yeah, we bear witness. So we have to go back, okay, to that spirit. We have to go back, okay, to that covenant in our life. So our economic should help us, okay, to go back, okay, to that covenant. Now this is basically the role of economics. Yeah. So our insaniyah, our humanity should not be subject to economics. Economics should help us reaching, okay, our real what we call it, essence of human being, our insan kamil. So economics should be the tool. Yeah, economics should be the instrument and the tool to reach our status as insan kamil. Not, yeah, we are being defined by economics, okay, as Homo economicus, or we are defined by biologists as Homo sapiens. No. All right. So we have our own definition. We know ourselves, who we are. So economics, we are not subject to economics. Economics should help us reaching, yeah, our destination as al-insan kamil. So we should not be trapped to become the servant of dinar and dirham. All right. Of course, nowadays we are talking about dinar and dirham, but we should not forget that dinar and dirham can also become God. And that's why Prophet Salam says, Ta'isu abd dinar wa ta'isu abd dirham. Woe to the servant of dinar and woe to the servant of dirham. So there was the economic, the Muslim should not be servant of dinar and dirham. But of course, the dinar and dirham can be used, okay, to reach our goal. Yeah, in fact, in other ayah, yeah, in Surah An-Nur, yeah, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala describing, okay, the personality of real insan kamil. Rijalun la tulhihim tijaratun wala bay'un an dzikrillah. He is a man who is not distracted, okay, by the tijarah, by the business, and neither, okay, by the sale from the remembrance of God. Now, this is actually the human being in Islamic economics. So we should be like this. Should be like rijalun la tulhihim tijaratun wala bay'un an dzikrillah. Although bay, yeah, al-bay is halal, of course. Ahallallahu al-bay' wa harrama riba. But this bay should not distract us, okay, from remembrance, okay, to God. Yeah. Now, of course, when we have, okay, this conception of human being, yeah, it is very challenging, yeah, to integrate, okay, this conception of human being into a model, of course, into Islamic economics. Yeah. So the challenge is how to incorporate, okay, the Islamic worldview of man, yeah, in its economic analysis. Of course, it's very challenging. But again, remember, don't limit our analysis only to the what we call it, the quantitative aspect of economics. Yeah, because economic is not only quantitative. Economic is also qualitative. In fact, the Adam Smith book, okay, what's the wealth of nation, yeah, has no mathematical calculation, has no mathematical equation, has no, what you call it, has no graph at all. All right, it's still economics. All right, it is still economics. So lately, of course, economics has been influenced, okay, by the positivism in such a way that we have to bring everything into quantification. So that's why in Islamic economics, the approach should be broader, okay, than merely quantitative and positive analysis. Yeah, it should include inductive and deductive method. All right. So under Islamic economic, the analysis will be more complex. It is not simplified. Yeah. So we will talk in philosophy, in history, in qualitative aspect. Yeah. We use empirical, rational, authoritative, intuitive analysis. Yeah. Are these needed for Islamic economic? Not simply oversimplifying, okay, the complex phenomena. Okay. So in short, we can see this is basically the structure of Islamic economics. Basically, Islamic economics is a three-sector economics. Yeah. So you have on the top, okay, the Islamic worldview. Yeah. The Islamic worldview, of course, Islamic worldview consists of philosophy, law, ethics, maqasid. These are the Islamic worldview. And the Islamic worldview, okay, will govern the market and government. So market should be subject to Islamic worldview. The government also should be subject to Islamic worldview. So it is not only two-sector economy which is governed by market and government. Yeah, it is three-sector. And I have my own the whole what we call it discussion on the three-sector Islamic economics. And finally, yeah, this is my final slide. I'm sorry that I've been using more than 30 minutes. Finally, if you want to do a kind of Islamization of economics, then number one, of course, we have to understand the worldview of Islam. Yeah, and then we can, after that, after understanding it, so then we can use, okay, what we call the methods. Yeah, so in my understanding, there are three types of methods. One is called the method of negations, and then the method of integration, and the number three is the method of value addition. I have my own paper on this. Yeah, when we say negation, yeah, basically those who are against Islam, against Islamic worldview, against Sharia, against Islamic values, okay, against philosophy, against our maqasid, should be rejected, such as secularism, materialism, hedonism, riba, gambling. So this is what we call the westernization aspect of the discipline. Yeah, and then number two is what we call the integrations. Yeah, integration, we accept. Yeah, we accept whatever good, yeah, from other system. Yeah, remember Prophet Sallam says, "Al-hikmatu dalatul mu'min." Yeah, the wisdom is basically the lost property of the believer. So wherever he finds it, yeah, he has more right to it. So some aspect of economics, like positive economics or normative economics, can be integrated, okay, in Islamic economics, of course. And the third one is what we call the value additions. Now, this value addition is our own contributions. Yeah, our own new contribution, which is not there originally in conventional economics. In fact, we have been making a lot of contributions nowadays. Yeah, Islamic economic give new contribution. Okay, like for example, the concept of sukuk, the concept of takaful, the concept of hisbah, the concept of Islamic finance, the concept of zakah, for example, in Islamic social finance. These are from Islam. Yeah, which are not there in conventional economy. This is what we call the value additions. And finally, of course, we should also accept the criticism, yeah, from other disciplines, yeah, from other scholars also to make Islamic economic more mature. So there is a need for appraisal and criticism of conventional economics, also some practices of Islamic economics in the context of, for example, like Islamic banking and finance. Of course, now what is being developed, yeah, what is really in the market is more on the Islamic banking and finance, yeah, not really Islamic economics. And in terms of the practice, of course, there are still many issues with regard to the practices of Islamic banking and finance. So we should accept their criticism. So with this, I would like to end my side. Yeah, I would like to give back, okay, the mic to Dr. Weni. Aku lu qouli hadza wa astaghfirullahaladzim wa lakum. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ugi Suharto. It's very much, give us interesting topic and give a lot of valuable information related with the worldview of Islamic economic system. Especially, we got information about the differences between self-interest and selfishness. Without further ado, we'll turn to second presenter, Dr. Hafas Furqani.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Hafas, let me introduce yourself first. Dr. Hafas currently lecturer in Islamic State University in Weni, Ar-Raniny, Banda, Aceh, Indonesia. He got Ph.D. holder in 2012 in International Islamic University Malaysia, IIUM in Kuala Lumpur. He also got the Master Economics, obtained the Master Economics holder in International Islamic University Malaysia, IUM, in 2006. He hold his degree holder in Islamic State University, Uin Syarif Hidayatullah in Jakarta, Indonesia. Dr. Hafas also many awards, got many awards during his career in Islamic economics and finance. In 2019, he got award from Emerald for the paper Islamic Financial Services Act in 2013 and the Sharia compliance requirement of Islamic finance industry in Malaysia, published by ISRA, International Journal of Islamic Finance. And also he got award from Emerald in 2013 for the paper with the title Theory Appraisal in Islamic Economics, Methodology, Purposes, and Criteria, published in Humanomics. Dr. Hafas also got as a first prize winner of the Kuala Lumpur Festival Islamic Economy and Finance essay competition for the challenges in the construction of Islamic economics discipline. And also, Dr. Hafas is currently as a director of the CENTRIEFP, the Center for Training and Research in Islamic Economic, Finance, and Public Policy in Islamic State University, Ar-Raniny, Banda, Aceh, from 2019 until 2022. He also previously working in ISRA as a researcher, senior researcher in ISRA, International Sharia Research Academy for Islamic Finance in Malaysia from 2012 until 2016. Dr. Hafas is a Deputy Dean for Faculty of Economy and Business in UIN Ar-Raniny, Islamic State University in Ar-Raniny, Aceh, 2018 until now. He's also held the position as a head of economic department for postgraduate Islamic Economy and Finance Department in also Islamic State University in Ar-Raniny, Banda Aceh, Indonesia, and also as a head of laboratory for Faculty of Economy and Business in Islamic State University in Ar-Raniny, Banda Aceh, 2017 until 2018. He's also held the position as a head of department for economic department in Faculty of Economy and Business in Islamic State University in Ar-Raniny from 2015 until 2017. Dr. Hafas also published many books and also many journals, especially joined with the ISRA, Islamic Sharia Research Academy in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He's also as an advisor for the Bank Perkreditan Rakyat Indonesia for Rural Credit Bank Syariah in Banda Aceh. Dr. Hafas also is appointed as a visiting scholar in Islamic Development Bank from 2015 until from January 2015 until February 2015. And also Dr. Hafas is a trainer for national and international trainer, especially for the Bank Rakyat in Malaysia, for Syariah committee members and Syariah division officers that helped by the International Sharia Research Academy for Islamic Finance in Malaysia in April 2013. Please welcome for Dr. Hafas Furqani. for deliver your topic. I give you 30 minutes for presentation. You share the slide or me share the slide, Dr. Hafas? I give you, yeah?
Okay. I will share my slide.
Okay, thank you. You can start now, Dr. Hafas.
Okay, before I start, let me settle this slide first. Okay, Weni, can you see my slide?
I can see your slide. You can start now, Doctor.
Okay. Okay, so you can see my slide, right?
You can see your slide.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wa bihi nasta'in ala umuri dunya waddin. Salatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Thank you very much, Dr. Weni, for very nice introductions, and respected to our senior also, my lecturer also in IUM, Professor Suharto, and my friends, Dr. Nurizal. Okay, my topics will be a continuations of what has been presented by Prof. Ugi just now. So the title of my presentation is Worldview and the Construction of Economics, Secular and Islamic Perspective. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that worldview play a very important role in construction of disciplines, economic in this perspective, whether it is secular economics or conventional economics, and also Islamic economics. So the differences in the economic disciplines, conventional or Islamic, is basically mainly because of differences in worldview. So just now, Prof. Ugi has explains what is worldview and what are the implications of worldview in the developing Islamic economic disciplines. So I'm just trying to add further arguments on the role of worldview in the constructions of economics. So basically, any system of thought is founded on a worldview. And it is not only founded on worldview, worldview also decorates our scientific atmosphere. So this means that worldview will give us a perspective on how we can develop a disciplines, and what will be the directions, what are the goals to be achieved for the disciplines. So it is impossible to have disciplines. What I mean by discipline is that a body of knowledge, without having a clear perspective on the worldview itself. So yeah, okay, Weni, can you hear my voice?
Okay, you can continue, Doctor.
Yeah, you can see also my slide, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I continue. Before we proceed further, let us clarify first what is the worldview. So worldview, in Germany, it is also said as Weltanschauung. So it is the Wel means word and Anschauung means view. So worldview is basically how do we see the world. So the definition of worldview, as proposed by some scholars, worldview is the concepts and framework of ideas through which human interprets life and the world. So it is a belief, doctrine, perspective, and values in the sense that it supplies views, assumption, and image of how to perceive things. So in this regard, worldview is, even though there is a term world, dunia, but basically what do we mean by worldview is that how we view or how we perceive or how we see everything, not only the world, but also how we see the man, how we see God even, and how we see the society, how we see everything. So worldview give us a broader perspective, and how do we see everything, how do we see realities basically. So in this regard, the function of worldview is that the worldview is the mabda. Mabda means the foundation, the basis. So it is the basis of everything. So how just now Prof. Ugi conceptualized the perspective of Homo economicus. So how do we see Homo economicus, or how do we see human beings? So basically, this embark from the foundation, the basis is that the worldview itself. But the question is that what are the sources of this worldview? So worldview is the basis that how we see everything. But what are the basis of the worldview itself? So this that differentiate Islamic perspective on worldview and the secular or the conventional perspective on worldview. So the secular perspective on worldview, the basis for the worldview is that comes from the human reasonings or human thinkings. Basically comes from the philosophers. So philosophers have ideas, they try to reason, do logics, how do they think a human being, how do they think this world, is there any life after this world? So they try to visualize, they try to think. So that becomes the source of worldview. But in Islamic perspective, the source of worldview is not from human. So the source of worldview is the religion, which means Islam. So that's why we put the term Islamic worldview in front of worldview. So to differentiate our worldview with the other types of worldview, whereby in Islamic perspective, Islamic worldview, the worldview comes from Islam as a religion. So when we say Islam is religion, that means our worldview comes from the source of knowledge, which are recognized by Islam, namely the Quran and Sunnah. So our worldview, Islamic worldview, comes from the perspective of how do we see everything, or how do we see realities, comes from the Quran and Sunnah, which means revealed by God. Quran and Sunnah are revealed by God. So God Himself revealed through His prophet. How do we see realities, or how do we see everything? So it is not comes from speculations. It's not come from human being thinking or philosophers' thought. It comes from God Himself. So this is what has been said by Professor Said Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas. So you can see here, Said Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas says that worldview is not Nazratul Islam lil Kaun, which he of a mere mind's view of the physical world or universe and of man's historical, social, political, and cultural involvement in it. So worldview is the way Islam look at the existence, al-wujud of God, human beings, and the total universe. Ru'yatul Islam lil wujud. So in this perspective, Prof. Naqib Al-Atas tried to differentiate Islamic worldview and the secular worldview, whereby in the secular worldview, their perspective is very much looking at the tangible realities, realities that we can see. So the physical world, the physical human beings, the material dimensions, and other this, it is not considered as being. So, but in Islam, we have many types of beings. It is not only the physical universe. Even we have a perspective on God. On God. So the total universe, something which is beyond this world. So that influence also our perspective on how do we see things. So we believe in God. We believe in the revelations, al-wahyu. We believe also in the Yawmil Akhir, the Judgment Day. So these are beyond physical things. It is metaphysics. So metaphysics is also includes in our perspective of worldview. So this give us foundations on how do we see economic phenomena later on. So our perspective on economic phenomena will be different to the conventional perspective of seeing economic phenomena because of these differences in worldview. Worldview will then determine the construction of science. So how construction of disciplines? This will be through three channels. The first is the activities of its practitioners to acquire knowledge. So worldview give perspective to the philosophers or to the thinkers or to the Islamic economic thinkers or to the conventional economic thinkers. So from worldview, they have their own worldview. This influence the practitioners, the scholars. How do they do observations? How do they do verification, falsification, descriptions, experimentation? Or how do they appraise theories? How do they do the scientific activities? All these are influenced by the worldview. So worldview give the directions on how do we do our scientific activities. And then what are the rules? What are the methodology to gain knowledge? So this also implicates by the worldview. Whether we do empirical testing, observable or comprehensible or persuasion or many other things. So various type of methodologies are developed because of the worldview, because of the worldview. So the worldview gives us perspective on how we verify knowledge, on how we gather knowledge. And then what are the purpose of science, of scientific purposes? Whether we just only describe things, we just only explain, predict, control, falsify, verify, persuasion, and etc. Or we want to transform the society, as Asad Zaman said. So this because of also the worldview. So worldview give impacts in development of science in three ways. The first is through the practitioners himself, through the scholars himself, and the second is through the method or methodologies, and the third is through the purpose of scientific activities. There is a debate among the scholars whether economics has a doctrine or not, whether economic is developed based on certain doctrines or ideology or not. Because many have said, such as Lionel Robbins, Lionel Robbins says that economic as a science is entirely neutral between ends. So Lionel Robbins in this regard says that economic is just a science which has no value dimension in it. There is no metaphysical dimensions in economics. There is no doctrine or dogma in economics. It is a pure science. Economic is pure science, which is entirely neutral between ends. Between ends means between values, goals, or etc. So economic is a science. And Milton Friedman also says that in his book, Essays in Positive Economics. So he says that economics is independent of any particular ethical positions or normative judgments. So he also says that economic is a positive science, which means that economic, there is no values in it. So value has been neutralized, and it only describes something which are positive or which are factual in realities. So that economic can be applied to any society, whether it is a Western society, Islamic society, in Africa, in Asia. So economic is a positive science, and it is global, can be applied anywhere. But is what they say is true or not? So there is a debate on this. For example, Joseph Spengler says that he doesn't believe with what Lionel Robbins or Milton Friedman says. Spengler says in his book, Origin of Economic Thought and Justice, he says that economic, essentially a product of European civilizations, with some of its origin dating back to the Greco-Roman and medieval world. So what Spengler said here is that economic as a science is developed based on certain value, and it is influenced by certain traditions in society. In this regard, the traditions comes from the European civilizations. If we can take back, trace back, it goes to the time of Roman Empire or medieval world. So this civilization give perspective to the scholars, to the philosophers at that time, Adam Smith, David Ricardo, and etc. And based on that perspective, they develop economics. So it is not correct to say that economic is neutral. It is a neutral science, or it is a positive science. It is a normative science, and the norms comes from the European civilization. Robert Heilbronner also says similar things, and the worldly philosopher. Economic is not a science of society, but its purpose is to help us have to shape our collective destiny for the foreseeable future. So economic is developed to explain the society, the capitalist society setting. So economics idealize a kind of society which is called as capitalist society. So in this regard, economic is not neutral towards towards values or towards ends or towards goals. Economic based on certain values. So based on that reason, Professor Muhammad Aslam Hanif says that since alternative worldviews or ideology exist, different types of economics are not only possible but natural and legitimate as well. So in this perspective, we don't believe that economics, the conventional economic, is not developed based on the conventional or secular worldview. We don't believe that. This is what Prof. Muhammad Aslam Hanif has said. So he says that different type of worldview exists, so that's different types of economics will also possible. And Umar Chapra also says similar things. If there is a substantial difference in worldview and the vision, there is no reasons why there cannot be greater differences in the disciplines. So this gives us legitimacy for Islamic economics to be established, because we have different worldview, namely Islamic worldview. So that's we can have different types of economic, which can be called as deep Islamic economics. And Muhammad Khatami also, Iranian president, also has said that in rejecting the West, we wish to free ourselves from its political, mental, cultural, and economic domination. For as Muslim, we differ from them fundamentally in worldview and values. So there is big differences in worldview. So that's we will have big differences in economics, in theory of economics, in the application of economics as well. So this will be the challenge. This will be the challenge, because in our Islamization of knowledge, we don't put it seriously. We try to Islamize body of knowledge, but we don't try to Islamize the foundation of knowledge. So I would like to quote Professor Muhammad Nakib Al-Atas says, the greatest challenge that has surreptitiously arisen in our age is the challenge of knowledge. Indeed, not as against ignorance, but knowledge as conceived and disseminated through the world by Western civilization, knowledge whose nature has become problematic because it has lost its true purpose due to being unjustly conceived, and has thus brought about chaos in man's life, instead of and rather than peace and justice. Knowledge which pretends to be real, but which is productive of confusion and skepticism, which has elevated doubt and conjecture to the scientific rank in methodology. So in this regard, we have to be very cautious in Islamizing knowledge, Islamization of knowledge. Before we do Islamization of body of knowledge, we have to firstly put serious attention on the foundation of knowledge. So foundation of knowledge comes from the worldview itself. So we have to settle this first before we try to Islamize the body of knowledge. So in many of my paper, I don't agree if we try to Islamize utility, for example, and we call it as Islamic utility, or we try to Islamize rationality and then we call it Islamic rationality, because the foundation itself has not been Islamized. So we have to settle first the foundation of knowledge before we try to Islamize the knowledge. So this will be the challenge. This will be the challenge. And I can share my paper on this. It has been published in Gontor, Gontor Journal, Worldview and the Construction of Economic, Secular and Islamic Perspective. So basically here the challenges are in three dimensions. In three dimensions. The first is how we define our economic problems. Is it scarcity, our economic problems? Is it material, humanitarian, or spiritual problems? So this will be the subject matter of Islamic economics. What are our subject matter? Mawdu'ul bahsi. Is it scarcity? Is it justice? Or what is it? And the second is what are the goals to be achieved? Is it self-satisfaction? Is it profit maximization? Is it realization of well-being? Or what are the goals? And then what are the mechanisms and method for realizing them? How do this is related to the means, to the means or to the way? How we can achieve our goals of well-being? So this determines our perspective in developing Islamic economic, and this comes from the worldview. And lastly, I would like to read this quotation. It comes from my paper. As a new system of thought addressing human economic life, Islamic economic is challenged to be able to actively promote the Islamic ideals in the economic realms and reform the adverse situations of human economy, supplement what is lacking in current practices, and offer a new, better perspective in guiding men to achieve ultimate well-being. So that are our challenge. So yes, we have different type of worldview, but how this worldview can implicate in developing our discipline Islamic economics. So that are the challenge for us. So basically, currently, I would like to say that we have our own worldview, but that worldview has been put aside. And when we develop Islamic economic, we just do as it is. As if the Islamic worldview has no implications in developing Islamic economics. So that is the challenge for us. And thank you very much. I'd like to stop here. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hafas Furqani, to give us interesting topic, especially about the secular worldview and the construction of economics. And also give us the view of the thinking or the thoughts of the Said, Professor Dr. Said Naqib Al-Atas about Islam and secularism. And we can see here that still many challenges faced by the Islamic economics to build up its own foundation, instead of like Islamize. I mean, like Dr. Hafas Furqani just said the same thing with Professor Dr. Suharto. Just Islamize the thing, like the utility. After that, you Islamize without knowing about the basic of Islam itself. Okay, without further ado, we continue for the last presenter, Mr. Nurizal Ismail. Mr. Nurizal Ismail. Mr. Nurizal Ismail. Mr. Nurizal, please. Okay. Switch. Okay, before we start with the last presenter, Mr. Nurizal Ismail, let me introduce himself first. Mr. Nurizal Ismail currently is a full-time lecturer at Tazkia University College of Islamic Economics in Bogor, Indonesia. He is now also taking Ph.D. in Islamic Wealth Management at University Science Islam Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He obtained his Master of Art, International Islamic Thoughts and Civilization, ISTEC, at International Islamic University Malaysia, IUM. He obtained his Bachelor of Islamic Economics in Tazkia University College of Islamic Economics, and also completed his study in Islamic Boarding School, Pondok Modern Darussalam Gontor. Mr. Nurizal Ismail also became lecturer in University of Darussalam Gontor from 2016 until 2018, and also he became rector of Husnain Business School Jakarta from 2016 until 2017. And in 2013, he became research assistant in Faculty of Economics and Muamalat in USIM in Malaysia. He was appointed as a manager marketing of Institute Islamic Economic in Tazkia, and also appointed as a head of Islamic Microfinance Management of Institute Islamic Economic Tazkia from 2010 until 2011. He was also appointed as the office administration at Ara Teknologi, Sdn Berhad in Malaysia, and taught the Islamic boarding school Darussalam Gontor in Ponorogo as a teacher in Darussalam Gontor Ponorogo from 2000 until 2001. Mr. Nurizal Ismail also published many journals and also books, not only for national level but also international. And now we go for Mr. Nurizal Ismail to deliver his topic. Please welcome Mr. Nurizal Ismail. You can start now. Okay, we still connecting with Mr. Rizal. Please wait a moment.
Ada chat dari beliau, ada chat dari Ustaz Nurizal. Saya nggak bisa masuk katanya. Mic dan video are disabled by host. I cannot share.
Prof Ugi asking him to join with our webinar because his name.
Dia di sini dia bilang dia ada di chat nih. Coba lihat di chat. Di chat dia kata dia nggak bisa masuk. Coba lihat di chatnya itu ada. Ada message dari dia. Dia udah di dalam katanya. Tapi nggak bisa share. Nah, ini baru masuk nih.
Sudah masuk ini saya. Alhamdulillah sudah bisa. Oke, thank you. Ya, my mic is settled. Now waiting for the video. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, alhamdulillah, my mic is settled. I can speak now. So, okay, thank you. Okay, alhamdulillah, yeah, settled. No, I can share my slide or host disabled party.
Okay, Mr. Nurizal, you can become a host now. Please start, yeah.
Yeah,
There's,
okay.
I think 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes, yeah. Because I just compile what both speaker already explained to us. Yeah. Yeah. My topic, yeah, today is the role of Turos, yeah, in Islamic economic, yeah. As we know, as explained by both speakers here, that Islamic worldview is one of the important or main important aspect, yeah, in Islamic economic, yeah. So in order to make our Islamic worldview is on the track, yeah, one of the aspect we should refer is from the Islamic traditions, yeah, as developed by our early Muslim scholars, yeah, as in hadith, as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yeah, al ulama, yeah, warasatul anbiya, yeah. So the ulama, yeah, is the legacy, yeah, of the prophets, yeah. So I think address this topic, which is, to me, it is very important, yeah. Yeah, I began my introductions, yeah, to the wider scope of the history of economics, yeah. So I combine two economic history, both Western and Islamic economic history here, yeah. As we see, Islamic economic has its own concept and theory in Islamic economic, which is derived from Quran and Hadith, yeah. In the beginning, as if we refer to Najatul Siddiqui, said that most of the resource taken in developing of Islamic economic from the fiqh, yeah, yeah, 1/4, yeah, of the resource, yeah. And after 8th and 15th century, where the movement, translation movement, yeah, initiated by Abbasid Caliph, yeah, Harun al-Rashid and al-Ma'mun, yeah. So there is a transformation of knowledge, yeah, from Greek civilizations and Indian civilization in terms of knowledge, yeah, like philosophy and calculations, yeah, mathematics, and etc. So here, the knowledge of Islamic economic was not only produced by early Muslim jurists in fiqh, yeah, but also some Muslim philosophers try to introduce ilm tadbir al-manzil, yeah, which came from thinker of Greeks, yeah, like Aristotle, Xenophon, yeah, etc. So here we can see there are many Islamic classical books, yeah, produced by early Muslim thinker, as we know, is, yeah, Turos, yeah. And then today, our Muslim economic, yeah, economists contemporary try to develop, yeah. I can see here, yeah, how they develop of Islamic economic, yeah. There are some methods, yeah, some trying to develop from the neoclassical economic, then they abandoned Islamic value and principle, and other group they're trying to take from the Islamic legacy, from Islamic traditions, yeah, taking from the original roots, yeah. They're trying to develop from the Turos, yeah. So there's two I think understood methodology that now currently developed by each group, whether trying to develop in the neoclassical aspect or taking the root from the Islamic legacy. Here some the stage of Islamic economic thought. I think we skip here. In Indonesia, Turos is a known kitab kuning or yellow book. Sometimes referring to religious text used international institution of Islamic learning of Southeast Asia. And also, it is related to Islamic book written in Arabic book. Whether it is in Malay or Javanese language or in Bahasa, but the character is in Arabic. In Malayu we can say Jawi. So in wider aspect, we can say At-Turos al-Islami or Islamic heritage. At-Turos is all legacy left behind by Muslim individual or society throughout Islamic history. So it is not only in the form of a book, when we are talking about Turos, but also other aspect like building, and artist building, and others legacy left by Muslim individual or society in the past, in the Islamic history. And we quote here from Imam Malik, that our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has left us two the important sources, which is Quran and Sunnah, and later on developed by our ulama, in many concepts, either in Islamic science or other Islamic knowledge, in the Islamic history. This one I skip. This. So I took from Prof. Sabri Orman. There are two sources of Turos, according to him, in relation to Islamic economic, general sources and special resources. In general, it is from Quran, Sunnah, Tafsir, Islamic history, fiqh, and kalam, and tasawwuf. So we can say the general source because in that sources not only discuss on ideas of Islamic economy, but discuss also another aspect of human life. But it consists of economic idea, such as in kalam. If we see many book of kalam, I take one example, the book of Qadi Abdul Jabbar, entitled Al-Mughni. In the chapter of book, in his book Bab At-Takdir, the concept of price is discussed very detailed, as well as in Majmu' Fatawa of Ibn Taymiyyah, also in Bab At-Takdir, discuss the concept of price in the market. So it is giving us that the concept of price in Islam is not about a market, but it is also related to the God that who has the authority, to set the price, whether there is a mechanism, sunnatullah, but the end, the only one to set the price is Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. This is the worldview of Islam regarding the price. And there are many things again in general sources which related in Islamic economy. But in general resources, in specific resources, there are 6 resources related to the Islamic economic. Yeah, here is Kitab al-Kharaj. Yeah, one of the writer. Yeah, famous writer is Imam Abu Yusuf. Yeah, but as we know, it is not only written by Imam Abu Yusuf. Yeah, there are some writer who wrote about this genre, al-Kharat, such as Yahya bin Adam and Qudamah ibn Ja'far. And secondly is the genre of al-Amwal. We have here Prof. Suharto, the one who write dissertation on Kitab al-Amwal. So also in al-Amwal, it is not only written by Imam Abu Ubaid, but also there are many writers like Al-Janzawi is discipline, and then Ad-Dawudi, and then genre Al-Kasab, it is written by As-Saibani, discipline of Imam Abu Hanifa, but also not only Imam As-Saibani, there are many scholar, Muslim scholar, who write the genre Al-Kasab, like Al-Muhasibi, in his book Al-Makasib. And then we have genre At-Tijaro. There are two important writers of At-Tijaro here. We have Ja'far al-Dimaski, who wrote Kitabul Isara ila Masin At-Tijaro. Al-Jahiz, as known in the West as the Islamic biologist, which al-Hayawanat, but he also write, which is entitled At-Tabassur bit-Tijaro. And then the genre of An-Nukut, such as Al-Magrizi, and then there are many again, and genre Al-Isbah, one of the early writer of the Al-Isbah is Yahya bin Umar, who live in Andalusia, and then continue by others Muslim scholar like with his book Al-Isbah fil Islam. But I think it not only 6 resource. There are many again the specific resource related to Islamic economic today, which is Ilam Tarbir al-Manzil, that developed by Muslim philosopher, such as Ibn Sina, and then later on developed by many Muslim scholars, like in Ottoman Empire, we have Al-Izadi al-Islami, one of the Muslim philosopher in the late 15th century in the Ottoman Empire. Also, we have a specific book that focuses on wakaf. As we know, we have Al-Khassaf. It is written in 19th century. And then after then we have in 15th century in Ottoman Empire also there is a debate on the issue of cash wakaf. There are 2 books. Abu Saud is the ulama who promote the cash wakaf, and the other one Al-Birkawi, the one who contra to the cash wakaf. So I think it is interesting topic in that time. So I can say that the cash wakaf in the time of Ottoman Empire by saying the source in that time. So I can say here, what is the role of Turos in Islamic economic here? So the Turos provide us a detail of historical economic condition in this Islamic history. If we want to know how was the inflations in Egypt. Yeah, we can refer to the book of Ighasatul Ummah Bikasfil Gummah, yeah, written by Imam Al-Maghrizi. Yeah. He discuss, yeah, detail, yeah, on the aspect of inflations, yeah, in the Egypt, yeah, in the beginning to the time of Mamluk dynasty, and also the existence of Turos as a play a role in transmitting knowledge, yeah, developed by early Muslim scholar in the Islamic history that can be used to develop Islamic economic in contemporary time. Yeah, so we have to make a bridging. Yeah. Yeah, taking the root, taking the legacy of work, yeah, developed by early Muslim thinker to our Islamic economic today. I think it is important, yeah, instead of currently when we are developing Islamic economy still in pragmatism, yeah. But I think we hope also, yeah, others group who trying to handle from the roots of Islamic economy. And then the Turos is a basic concept developed by Muslim scholar that need to be elaborate, analyzed, and developed into current economic condition. Yeah. So we have to make relevance of Turos, yeah, which is related to the ideas of economic into current conditions, into current problem of economic today. Yeah. So Turos can be meaningful if we try to make a relevant in today's Islamic economy. Yeah, but there are many concepts that are not relevant. Yeah, so we just give we just can take a foundations of a particular concept of early concept in the Islamic history, like jizya in Islamic history. Jizya, I think, we can take a foundations, yeah, of jizya that regulated by the government of Islam, yeah, in the Islamic history. We take how the government, the Khilafah, yeah, the Khalifa, yeah, gave the policy of jizya very injustice manner. So we can take the basis, the foundation, how the Khalifa or the government regulate the tax, yeah, in just manner, yeah, which is derived from the Quran and the Sunnah. So I think that is my explanation related to the importance of Turos, yeah, the role of Turos, yeah, in developing of Islamic economy, which is related to the Islamic worldview. When we are talking about Islamic worldview, yeah, I think we should also, yeah, taking a consideration by referring to the Turos, Islamic classical text written in the Islamic history. I think that's all my explanation. Thank you, Dr. Weni, for giving me opportunity sharing knowledge on Islamic economic. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nurizal, for your delivering the topic, yeah, about the role of Turah in Islamic economics. So this is something new, yeah, maybe for me and also for the participants. Okay, without further ado, it seems that we have several questions. That I think we have four questions. So I will read the first question. This one I think for Professor Ugi Suharto. What modification in the basis of modern business organization is necessary to make them consistent with Islamic principles? Please, Prof. Ugi, to answer the question.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Weni. The question is related to the business. You know, we are talking about Islamic economics, which is the mother science. yeah, which is the main discussion in Islamic economics: business, accounting, banking, finance, okay, marketing. These are basically branches, yeah, of Islamic economics. Yeah, I think number one, we should focus on Islamic economic first before we go into branches, okay, like Islamic banking, Islamic finance, or business, for example. Yeah, we are trying, okay, to give focus on the Islamic economics. Well, of course, these are related. Yeah. Now, if we go to branches, especially like business, then it is much more related, okay, to the law, yeah, to the Islamic law, to the fiqh mu'amalat. Yeah. So of course, we should focus on the fiqh mu'amalat then. If we are talking about the business aspect, then we should refer, okay, to the Islamic jurisprudence, to the guidance, to the ethics and law of dealing a business. Okay, so what are business which are not against, okay, the Islamic principle? For example, you have to follow. For example, if you are buying and selling, then you have to know, okay, what are the valid sale, okay, what are the sale which are sah, or valid, what are the sale which are not valid. Then we have to learn fiqh, we have to learn fiqh muamalat. Yeah, and in fact, Sayyidina Umar, in his time, he didn't allow, okay, what I call it, the market participant, the seller, yeah, who are not aware of fiqh muamalat. You can imagine, yeah, in the time of Umar, yeah, he as a Khalifa made a policy. If the businessman, if the sellers are not aware of fiqh muamalah, Sayyidina Umar will not allow him, okay, to trade in the market. You see, so it means that if we want to do something, yeah, we must have knowledge. Yeah, so business is part of muamalat and part of amal. Again, in Islamic principle, amal should be preceded, okay, with knowledge. Yeah, al-ilmu imamun wal amalu ma'mumun. Yeah, so knowledge is basically the imam. Yeah, the amal is the ma'mum. All right. So it means that all the businessmen, especially Muslim businessmen, they should know, okay, the role of buying and selling. Yeah, if they do investment, they should know, yeah, what is principle of Islamic investment. So we need knowledge. So in order to bring, okay, this into Islamic principle, we finally should go back to the knowledge. Of course, there are many types of knowledge. It's not only about the fiqh mu'amalat. Yeah, so this is sometimes a misconception. Okay, the Islamic economy is just fiqh mu'amalat. No, fiqh mu'amalat is Islamic commercial law. Islamic economic is science, and of course, it is also a law. It is a science and also law. It is positive. It has a positive aspect, which is scientific, and it has normative aspect, okay, which is what's legal, ethical. All right. So it means that it is not only fiqh. Yeah. So that's why I don't agree with the term in Indonesia, the Islamic economics as syariah, yeah, economy syariah. It is not economy syariah. It is Islamic economic, because syariah it sounds like more on the legal, okay, the legal aspect. Syariah economy, yeah, and there is a kind of inconsistency. You say in bahasa Indonesia economy syariah, but when you translate into English, it becomes Islamic economics. So there is a kind of inconsistency here. So remember, using a correct term is very important. Yeah, because what I call it, the scientific thinking. Okay, we start with the using of the correct term, and then consistent in using the term. All right. So these are some of the issues, of course. Why? Because sometimes we jump into practices, into pragmatism. Yeah, and we want to discuss about knowledge. Oh, no, this is not practical. Okay, this is utopian. Yeah, and then we go directly to practical. When we practice, there are a lot of mistakes in the practice. Then we go back to the knowledge. We are wasting our time. This is basically the issue. Yeah, this is basically the issue. Now people don't understand anymore Islamic economics. When they discuss about Islamic economics, they again finally discuss Islamic banking, Islamic finance. Yeah, but at least now we are talking about Islamic economics, right? We are talking about the worldview. We are talking about the body of knowledge of Islamic economics. We are talking about the two roles of Islamic economics, okay, which are not really. You see, we never throughout this 2 hours we have been discussing not even a single about Islamic banking and finance, right? Yes, because Islamic economics is the mother science. Yeah, so we should focus on this. Yeah, there are a lot of literature already about Islamic banking and finance. Khalas, enough. And by the way, Islamic banking and finance is not going anywhere. It's already reached its level. There is nothing new anymore under Islamic banking and finance. Yeah, what is new is the hilah. Yeah, this is the new hilah. Yeah, but the philosophy. This is basically what we drive. Okay, the philosophy, the metaphysics, okay, the values, the ethics, the scientific, okay, the Islamic worldview. This is what we are lacking. Yeah, so I think we should be aware of this. We have been spending time more on the practical side, but we forgot about the foundations. Yeah, so that is my short answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ugi. I absolutely agree with you because actually people in Indonesia, yeah, also me, sometimes I'm confused. Economic Sharia or Islamic economy, economic Sharia or Islamic economics, and also many people actually sometimes also have the argument, yeah, what actually the basic difference between, I mean, like the conventional bank with the Islamic bank, because I think people still blur, Prof, about the what we call the basic of Islamic economy itself, but they just jump directly to the practical of Islamic banking, Islamic finance. I think this is maybe the task all of us, Prof. Ugi, to make it clear what actually the originality of the Islamic economy itself. Thank you very much, Prof. Ugi. And now we go for the second questions. Second question, this one I give for Dr. Hafas to answer from Sultan Sahri, yeah, from University of North Sumatra. There are some researchers that think that Islamic bank actually almost the same as conventional banks, especially just market expansion. Please explain about this, Dr. Hafas, because the people outside still think about that. This one just like try to Islamize, yeah, Islamize the commercial bank. Okay, Dr. Hafas, the floor is yours.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Sister Weni. And that questions break our traditions, Prof. Ugi, for today's talk. Because the questions to me is that what are the difference between Islamic banking and conventional banking? So basically, yeah, if we see the current practice, we have similarities and differences between Islamic bank and conventional banks. The similarities is that both Islamic bank and conventional banks, both are banks. Whether it is Islamic or conventional banks, both are banks. So what we mean by bank is that this bank is an intermediaries institutions, a financial institution, financial intermediaries that intermediate between the surplus unit and the deficit units. And then the differences is on how we intermediate the surplus unit, which are the deposits, the savers who save the money, and the deficit units, those who need money. So in conventional banks, this has been done through interest. So interest, a bank will charge interest, will give interest. The banks will give interest to the depositors, to the savers, those who save money. And then the banks will charge interest to those who take credit from banks. Yeah. So the credit, the interest from the credit will be higher from the credits from the interest that bank will give to the depositors. But in Islamic banks, we cannot do that because in Islamic banks, the interest is prohibited. So that's why then we have to find ways on how we can make these things become legal in Islamic perspective. So, so in Islamic bank, they will use Islamic contract based on Sharia compliance activities. In credit, for example, they give financing things through selling, through partnerships, and etc. Yeah. So that are the differences. But in doing this, since Islamic Bank is also set up, we Islamize the conventional bank practice through Islamic contract. Yeah? We cannot just leave the common practices as it is. So Islamic Bank in this regard is try to adopt and try to replicate what is there from the conventional banking. So this replication, this modification sometimes creates confusions among the societies, because whether Islamic Bank has not done this correctly, or because the society has misperception or has misunderstandings on what Islamic Bank has been done. So these confusions comes from two sides. It can come from the Islamic bankers themselves, whereby they do not do it correctly. They just try to replicate and do some hilah, and do not try to differentiate it in a real perspective. Or it can be from the society themselves, because our society also sometimes do not understand what Islamic Bank is. So this comes from these two dimensions. Allow me to give some perspective on the paradigm, Dr. Weni, paradigm for Islamic banking, and this should start from our shift. We have to shift paradigm also in understanding riba, because I see currently the problem is that when we interpret riba, it is very much in legal interpretations. So riba is basically, it's not only legal problems. So riba is not only about interest or bunga, whereby so in the legal perspective, riba, the problem of riba is that it is the problem of interest, which is haram. So we have to replace interest with other mechanisms. But currently, we have successfully replaced the interest. But the society still do not yet recognize the difference between Islamic bank and conventional banks. So I see there is some problems here. So in this regard, we have to also try to understand riba in the bigger perspective. So when Allah says وَحَلَّ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ riba, it can be done. It can be interpreted in three paradigm, in three perspectives. The first paradigm is the legal paradigm, which I mentioned just now. The second paradigm is about the ethical paradigm, the ethical paradigms. So when Allah says وَأَحَلَّ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ riba, the riba prohibition is also because of riba is a practice that lead to injustice, that lead to exploitations, that lead to non-transparency in dealings, cheating, and etc. So so riba is also prohibited because of that dimensions, because of the ethical dimensions. So this ethical is not only about the prohibitions, it is also about how do we provide good services to the society. So the society also wants to have a good services from Islamic Bank. So in this perspective, in the ethical perspective, we have broadened our interpretations of riba to also include to also include the services, to also include the good ethics, and we eliminated the bad ethics. And then the third paradigm is the systemic paradigms. When Allah says Allah prohibited riba, which that means also we want to eliminate all the ribawi system, all the ribawi systems. So in this regard, the Islamic bank should be treated as a new banking system. It is not an old banking system with a new dress. So currently Islamic banking is still an old system, conventional system, but with new dress. We have to try to come up with a new banking system based on Islamic values, Islamic traditions. So we want to eliminate the ribawi system also. and come up with the Islamic system, including the Islamic banking system. So it is not only about Islamic law, it is not only about Islamic ethics, but it is also about the Islamic system. I think that's all, Sister Weni.
Thank you, Dr. Hafas. Thank you for your answer. Now we just go for the next question, yeah. This one for Mr. Nurizal, yeah. How Islamic economy can overcome current economic situation, especially in COVID-19 pandemic situation? Okay, please, for Mr. Nurizal to answer the question. Mr. Nurizal, this one, you still mute. Please unmute.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wendy. I'd like to answer the question. Yeah, the very big issues. Yeah, because we are currently in COVID-19 era, yeah, pandemic. Yeah, I think there are many instruments, yeah, of Islamic economic that can resolve the problem of COVID-19 pandemic, yeah, not only in Indonesia, also in various countries, yeah, in the world, yeah, such as in Islamic social finance, yeah, zakat, yeah, infak, sedekah, and wakaf, yeah, that can play a role, yeah, in handling the new poverty, yeah, of COVID-19. Yeah, as we know, currently we see many aspect of zakat, yeah, wakaf, yeah, and sadaqah, yeah, that can help, yeah, people who are in need, yeah, because of the COVID-19. Yeah. Also, if we can reflect to the past, yeah, to the history, yeah, taking a learning, yeah, from the history, yeah, we have to remember that when we build the situations, yeah, we have to handle, yeah, the pandemic. Yeah, there is a book written by Imam, yeah, for how to handle the pandemic. Yeah, to me, in order to handle the account, to handle society, but also Islamic economic related to the other dimensions. Yeah, yeah, because Sharia, how Islamic economic, yeah, is related to the Maqasid Sharia, especially in Maqasid al-Khamsah, yeah, preservation of deen and life, soul, and intellect, offspring, and wealth. Yeah. So Islamic economic, it is not only focusing on one aspect, on how we cater the problem of wealth in the society, in COVID-19 pandemic. But Islamic economics should also concern to the other aspect of human life, human element, because human itself, it is consists of very comprehensive dimensions. If we reflect to definition of human from Professor Naqib Alatas, human it is not only on Bashariyah in physical aspect, but human it is also related to al-insaniyah, spiritual aspect, and also related to social aspect. So when handling the matter, the problem of human, we have cater in comprehensive aspect, the nature of human life. So this is the unique of Islamic economic, when we relate to Maqasid Sharia. So not only economic matter, we have settled in other aspect, health, matters, and education matter. Now we have a problem in education. We have online learning education, how explanations regarding how Islamic economy can resolve the problem of COVID-19 in today's world. Thank you, Dr. Weni.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nurizal, for your answer. Now we have, I think this one, last question, last question for Prof. Ugi and Dr. Hafas, in our objective to make Islamic economics as an integrated social science, what do you think on the model that proposed by Dr. Mahyudi? He proposed universal man. And before that, do you agree that Islamic economics must be integrated social science, not only full of doctrine or Islamic teaching? Okay, please answer first from Prof. Ugi.
Yes, of course. Since economic is behavioral science, or science dealing with the behavior of human being, of man. So number one, we have to define who is man. Of course, I said it is insan kamil, right? Man is insan kamil, or universal man, of course. In English, we call it universal man. So we must use that analysis. Of course, this universal man or insan kamil is a very complex. The relationship between the soul and the body, it is very complex. All right. Because of the complexities, then our economic analysis will also be complex. All right. Now, we should not fear of the complexities. We should not be fear of the complexities. So we should let complex as a complex. All right. So in complexities, we'll deal with philosophy. Like look at Adam Smith, for example. He is first a moral philosopher, right? Because he has a book on the theory of moral sentiment. So before even he wrote about the wealth of nations, he already wrote the theory of moral sentiment, and he is a philosopher. He's a moral philosopher. When he talked about benevolence, okay, in that book he talked about benevolence, but in wealth of nation he talked about the self-interest. So we have to combine between this benevolence and the self-interest. But unfortunately, the economist is only talking one part of the Adam Smith, only the self-interest aspect, without talking about benevolence. All right, look at our relationship in the family. You see the relationship between husband and wife, father and mother, and children. Is this relationship is market relationship? No, it is not market relationship, right? The relationship between the family is not market. It's not profit. It's not for profit motive. So it means that market relationship is not the only relationship in our life. So we have to put the market relationship in perspective. It doesn't mean that we debunk market. No, but we should put market in a proper perspective. Yeah, of course there is a role in the market. Yeah, in fact, in Islamic economics, we recognize the role of market, but we also recognize the role of the government, because we know market is imperfect and market distorted. And because market is imperfect, market cannot lead to general equilibrium. Hence, there is a role of government. Then there is a public finance. But even the government also fails. Why? Because they are not guided. Yeah, they are not guided. Yeah, in Islamic economics, because we are using Islamic worldview, we have a guidance. So market should be guided, and government should also be guided. So that's why I call Islamic economics as three sector economics. Yeah, this is actually three sector economy in which the Islamic worldview will guide the market. You see, for example, money cannot be traded like nowadays. Debt cannot be traded like nowadays. It doesn't mean that all market activities are legal. No. Yeah. That's why Prophet ﷺ also, although buy is permissible, but not all type of buy is permissible. Naha Rasulullah an bai'il gharar, for example. Naha Rasulullah an bai'il ma'dum. So bai'il gharar, bai'il ma'dum, yeah, are not allowed. Yeah. Or even in certain type of marketing, for example, like talaqi rukban is not allowed. Yeah, sometimes it is allowed, sometimes it is. So it means the market should not be let free. Yeah, market should be guided. And government also should be guided in deriving the economic policy. Okay, so we should go back again, okay, to the Islamic worldview, and then how the Islamic worldview to be related, okay, to the current economic thinking or economic thought. Yeah, so that is actually my brief answer. Thank you very much, Dr. Weni.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ugi. Now turn to Dr. Hafas Furqani to answer the question.
Okay, with regard to the universal means, basically what I want to say is that in Islamic perspective, in the Quran itself, always classify two types of men, or always classifies two types of behavior. There is a behavior which is called as as-salihat, and then there is a behavior which is called as as-sayyi'at, and there are something good, there are something bad. There are something praised and there are something not praised by Islam. So human action is always two types, good and bad. So basically, human being also will be in that types, in that type of classifications. There are human beings which are good. There are human beings which are bad in action or behavior. So the benchmark for morality is the Quran and Hadith. So those who commit with the ethics comes from the Quran and Hadith, which is called as a good human being. Yeah? So Homo Islamicus is those who commits to the Islamic values, those who commits to the Islamic ethics as described in the Quran and Hadith. Yeah? So Homo economicus is an ideal man perceived by conventional economics who are rational, who are pursuing self-interest and self-maximization, utility maximization and self-profit maximization. So they have certain ideals on economics, on economic man, and the ideals comes from their perspective or worldview. So in Homo Islamicus, we have certain ideals, and Homo Islamicus or Islamic man, those who commit in his behavior to the Islamic values and to the Islamic ethics. So in this perspective, I don't know about the universal man, so we have to check first what are the definitions for universal man. Is it the same as Islamic man, or universal man will be a global man, or what is it? So I just because the definition which is more clear is about the definition for Islamic man, and the Homo economicus is the economic man. So for Islamic economic perspective, I prefer to just to just describe it in terms of Islamic men. So Islamic men, they have certain ideals of behavior, and the ideals of behaviors we develop it from the Quranic teaching and from the teaching of the Prophet, Prophet Muhammad SAW. So I think that's all, Sister Weni. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hafas Furqani. I think this one already 11:15. Okay, before we end our session, I think no more questions. Let me take a photo first, yeah. Professor Terugi, Dr. Hafas, and Mr. Nurizal, and also the participants. Let me take a photo first. Udah ada? Okay, done already. Thank you very much for Prof. Ugi Suharto from Oman, Dr. Hafas Furqani from UIN Ar-Raniny, Banda Aceh, and also for Mr. Nurizal Ismail from Tazkia Bogor. And also thank you very much also for all the participants who joining for the webinar today. Inshallah, can see you for the next time and for the next webinar. Okay, thank you very much, all of you. May Allah always blessing all of us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, I end this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Prof. Ugi, Dr.
Hafas.
Weni, dan Dr. Hafas.
Terima kasih Syekh Nurizal. Pak Ugi, makasih banyak Pak.
Ya, terima kasih semua ya. Sampai ketemu lagi ya.
Insya Allah.
Ya, assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.